What's up everyone, I'm CallumOnToast, and in today's video I'm going to be showcasing some battles in the Great League Remix Cup with XL Shadow Magnemite, which got a moveset change this season with Discharge costing less energy but also dealing less damage. And to be honest, for most Pokemon this is probably more of a nerf than it is a buff, as it just doesn't hit very hard anymore. It actually has these same stats as Thunder Punch before it got buffed last season, which was never a very good move. However, on Shadow Magnemite, this thing is insanely attack weighted, so Discharge in most cases is still going to be enough damage to get the KO when it hits for super effective damage, and now it just has better pacing than before. And of course, when it's not super effective, Magnet Bomb was always the better move to go for in neutral situations anyways, so I think this is just a strict upgrade for this Pokemon. It was also able to call break and sweep a lot of teams in this meta, especially with Belly Bolt as a safe swap there to bait out any ground type Pokemon. So with that being said, let's just get into the question of the day. Overall, do you think the change to Discharge this season was a buff or a nerf? And if you think it's a nerf, do you think it should deal more damage, or do you think they should have made it a 35 energy charge move? Let me know in the comment section down below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. We're heading into the first battle, leading Florigist into Crocodile. Now, unfortunately, I'm forced to stay in here as Shadow Magnemite is not be able to tank these Incinerates very well. So we stay in with the Florigist. Of course, they're hitting for neutral damage, but I can only hit for resisted damage myself. As we go for the Trailblaze first, of course, non-stab, but it boosts up my attack here. Fairy Wind's doing slightly more damage now, and I can go for a boosted Disarming Voice. And whilst this is still resisted damage, Disarming Voice gets them at least into the red health range before they fully farm me down. Gonna come in with a Belly Bolt. I'm just gonna sponge the damage here. Belly Bolt is fairly bulky, so I'm going to let the crunch go through. They drop my defense there. Not ideal, but I can go for a full Sucker Punch farm down. They come in with Shadow Dragonair. We swap into our Shadow Magnemite, and the opponent swaps out into Greninja, and this is perfect for me. I can go straight for Discharge. Discharge grabs the first shield from the opponent. And at this point, I'm definitely going to shield here. And at this point, I'm thinking, you know what? I might be able to deal enough damage with the Thunder Shocks to fully farm them down. So I'm going to double shield here. The opponent fires off a second Night Slash. These Water Shurikens are chunking, but we get the full farm down. And not only that, I come out with back-to-back Magnet Bombs. First one is going to grab the final shield, and now you will see just how attack weighted this Pokemon is, as Magnet Bomb number 2 gets the one-shot up against the Shadow Dragonair, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on that into the next battle. We see a Toxapex in the lead. So this time I can at least swap out, and I swap into Belly Bolt, met with a Claydol. Now, not ideal for me, but I do have Sucker Punch. Sucker Punch gonna hit for super effective damage. I've only, unfortunately, got electric type charge moves. The other option is Zap Cannon, which is still an electric type move, so it doesn't really help me out there. At this point, the opponent is gonna fire off a charge move, of course. I could have thrown a move here, but what I wanted to do was actually force the opponent to throw some of their energy instead of throwing back-to-back Rock Tombs up against my Florigist. The opponent fires off one Rock Tomb though, and unfortunately I cannot farm them all the way down. So what I will do is fire off a Trailblaze. Trailblaze, of course, gonna get the KO. We're gonna swap instantly into Shadow Magnemite, and the opponent choosing to stay in with their Toxapex. So definitely gonna shield. Brine, whilst not the best move, would actually do quite a lot of damage up against the Magnemite, and they come in with a Pidgeot, so they can only hit for double resisted fast move damage with the rest of their team. Now that we've removed the Claydol from the field of play, we're going to fire off back-to-back Discharges. Discharge number 2 grabs the final shield, and even though they can only hit for resisted damage, I'm going to shield this. They go for an Aerial Ace. I'm going to overfarm. I don't want to get too low, because otherwise they might be able to Poison Jab farm me down. So Discharge gets the KO there, and this is probably the only matchup for Shadow Magnemite where unfortunately Discharge doesn't do enough damage to get the KO, but I can swap out, make a catch there on my Florigist as the opponent gets the charge move. Brine does not get the KO there, but it doesn't matter. I'm one away from a second Discharge, and of course, from this range, Discharge takes out the Toxapex, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Florigist into Amoonguss. Now, a bit of a core breaker once again, so I'm going to swap into my Belly Bolt and met with a Quagsire. So, not ideal for me, but at least I can hit for single resisted damage with the Parabolic Charge, as opposed to the Claydol, which is a pure ground type Pokemon and double resist electric type damage. The opponent going to fire off an Aqua Tail, but I boosted up my defense. I'm able to sponge that pretty well, and I can no shield once again. Opponent clearly not on Mud Bomb, otherwise they would have just thrown it, and now I can go for a second Parabolic Charge, and from this range, it probably wouldn't quite get the KO, but it does grab a shield advantage, which is huge for me. Now I'm going to come in with the Florigist. I'm going to no-shield this, as the opponent fires off the Stone Edge there, so now I can overfarm just a little bit, fire off the Trailblaze on the CMP tie. Trailblaze, of course, double super effective, easily getting the KO from that range, but they've got a Typhlosion in the back, not even a Shadow Typhlosion, and yet 3 Incinerates is all it takes to get the full farm farm down up against the Shadow Magnemite. And unfortunately, an Incinerate user in the back, once Belly Bolt has been removed from the field of play, is just going to absolutely destroy my team. But GG's to the opponent there into next battle. Shadow Golurk in the lead. They say swap into Dugong. I'm going to bank a Trailblaze before swapping into my Shadow Magnemite. The opponent does not bait, they full send the drill run there. Now I can overfarm, throwing on good timing, firing off the discharge here. And discharge, gotta be no shielded, it actually gets the KO, and look at the huge damage from that Mud Slap. But speaking of huge damage, Magnet Bomb is not respected, it gets the one shot, but Shadow Magnemite also able to reach a last second discharge up against Shadow Walrein, putting in so much work in this battle. And that should be game over. All I need to do here is shield this up. If the opponent full sends an Earthquake, things could get a little bit dicey. But even then, I think I have a Trailblaze on my Florages anyways. I'm going to go for the Discharge. Discharge grabs the final shield, and now I can snipe with the Florages, firing off the Trailblaze. Trailblaze gets the KO, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's to opponent into next battle. We see Florages into Dragapult, so an amazing matchup for me. The opponent's going to say swap into an Overquill, which is a Pokemon that, honestly, I have probably never seen in the Go Battle League before. Of course, Hisuian Quillfish, that I think has ever so slightly better stats for the Great League, so you do just typically see it. And also, I think you have to win like 10 raids with this Pokemon to evolve it, so you just don't see it very often at all. The opponent goes for an Aqua Tail. I'm able to tank that, not super comfortably, but it turns out they're actually on Dragon Tail. So once again, able to reach the Magnet Bomb, and Magnet Bomb once again gets the one shot. But they've got a Shadow Skuntank, and this is an issue for me now. Bellybot, of course, having resisted fast move pressure. I come in with the Florages just because I can reach a Disarming Voice. And honestly, I probably should have stayed in and tried to reach a second one here, but I do swap out. I don't know if I would have made it to a second charge view, but at this point, it's going to be game over. I'm forced to no-shield the first move as they go for a Trailblaze, boost up their attack, but it just doesn't really matter at this point. I can fire off a Parabolic Charge, but the opponent still has a shield in play, so of course, they can just safely shield this up. They will be able to fully Poison Jab, farm me down, and now they're boosted. They don't even need to reach a charge view up against the Florages. They can just Poison Jab, farm me all the way down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's opponent there into next battle. We see another great lead for the Florages, and they swap into a Dusknoir. So this time coming in with the Belly Bolt. Gonna no-shield the first charge move here, and this will do quite a lot of damage actually. Shadow Punch is a fairly good move here, and of course with Astonish, it adds up quite quickly. But I can fire off the Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge, gonna be shielded, but I boost up my defense, and that is huge for me because now the opponent forced to throw a charge move here, but I can just safely shield that up and go for the full Sucker Punch farm down, maintaining alignment with my Florages up against that Guzzlord. The opponent comes back in with the Guzzlord. I go straight for Parabolic Charge once again. Parabolic Charge, not going to do much damage there, but it doesn't really matter. We've got Florages aligned to it, and they've got a Toxapex in the back, so that's going to be game over. And even though Discharge, like I mentioned, probably the only matchup here where Discharge isn't really going to hit for enough damage up against the Toxapex, it doesn't really matter. I can shield this up as the opponent fires off the Brine. I'm now going to overfarm here. I'm going to throw on CMP, unfortunately getting there as I get to back-to-back charge moves, but it doesn't really matter. Discharge doesn't quite get the KO, but we can come in with the Florages. We put them into farm down range. Brine gets the KO there. They swap back into Guzzlord. I'm taking no risk here. I'm going straight for Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice, double super effective, easily getting the one shot, and now I can just resist it. Fairy Wind, farm them down to take that game. So, GG's opponent into next battle to see a Greninja in the lead. So, a good matchup for me, and actually a great matchup for the entire team. But then another core breaker to the team. I don't really know what to do here. So, I come in with a Belly Bolt, as this is the only Pokemon that has a somewhat neutral move of any kind, actually. So, I'm going to go and fire off the Parabolic Charge here. It does boost up my defense, but it doesn't really help me that much. I don't really want to use a shield here. So, instead, I'm just going to fully sacrifice the Belly Bolt. At least Magnemite can also resist everything they throw, but still, it is a very glassy Pokemon, so I'm probably going to shield anyways. So at this point, the opponent fires off the charge move just as I am reaching a discharge, so good timing on their end. We are now going to overfarm. The opponent swaps back into Greninja, which is fine with me. I'm going to go and fire off the discharge, but it might be applied to bait out my Florages once again. So let's see what we do here. I'm going to shield this as the opponent fires off the Hydro Cannon, and now I'm going to farm up two back-to-back discharges before firing off the first one. Discharge, going to be no-shielded here. They come back in with the Ferrothorn. I swap back into Florages, but I realize I can't really overfarm here, otherwise they will reach a Flash Cannon. So Disarming Voice gets the KO, and they've got a Tinkaton in the back, and this is horrible for me, of course, expecting the opponent to be on Bulldoze as one of their charge moves, which is double super effective up against the Magnemite. At this point, I fire off the charge move on the CMP tie. The opponent is on Play Rough, buff, and that does not get the KO. If they had Heavy Slam there, maybe we had a chance there because I could just come in with my Magnemite, but unfortunately, I'm now forced to swap out. I had to stay in a little bit longer there as my switch clock was not up. We throw Discharge on CMP, winning CMP, but unfortunately, not at back-to-back. The opponent fires off the Bulldoze, and Florida's just way too low there. They're able to Fairy Wind, farm me down, and unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to opponent there into next battle. See a Shadow, Alolan Sandslash in the lead. Going to be safe swapping into Belly Bolt, and the opponent swaps into a Dragonite. Now, this is fine with me. I'm going to no shield here. I don't really want to use a shield on my tanky Pokemon. Instead, going to fire off the Parabolic Charge here, expecting to grab a shield advantage. But the opponent actually no shields that. Of course, realizing if they shield here, I can just come in with the Floriges and farm them down anyways. But then they come in with Tentacruel, and they do not get the farm down before I reach a last second discharge. So grabbing a shield advantage, flipping switch advantage, and then of course being able to farm up so much energy up against a Tentacruel where I'm double resistant to fast move damage. This is actually amazing for me. Of course, they debuff my attack there. Doesn't really matter. This is not a Toxapex. So discharge, when it does connect, will certainly be enough damage to get the KO despite the debuff to my attack. And then of course I can stay in here, but I am debuffed, so instead I'm going to swap out as I reach that Magnet Bomb there. I'm not going to bother shielding my Flourishes. The opponent fires off the Ice Punch, absolutely fine with me. The opponent going to fire off another Charge Leaf, and again I'm not going to bother shielding. I realize this is certainly in range where a Magnet Bomb will get the KO, so put my faith into Magnemite, and Magnet Bomb gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's opponent into next battle. See a Claydol in the lead. So, definitely where we want to see it. Not a hugely dominant matchup for us. Of course, Trailblaze is going to hit for super effective damage, but Fairy Winds, they don't really add up that much. And of course, I can boost up my attack, but they're just going to debuff me straight away with a Rock Tomb. Now, I can tank this, so I'm going to no shield. Maybe I should have shielded that, but either way, I'm going to farm up, throw another Trailblaze here. And at this point, I should definitely just let the Florges go down. But instead, I swap into Belly Bolt, expecting the opponent to think, okay, well, I'm going to stay in here. But no, the opponent can now throw the Rock Tomb and then just swap out of this matchup, and that is not ideal for me now because, of course, their Claydol, whilst it's not very healthy, I'm not going to have to farm them down with Thunder Shocks or Fairy Wind, so I'm in a huge problematic situation here. Gonna shield up the Thunder Punch. I need the opponent to just let this move go through. I tried to go for a Sucker Punch farm down, realize a third Sucker Punch probably just wouldn't quite get the KO there, so now I swap into my Magnemite. I'm going to be forced to throw a Charge Move before the opponent throws theirs, but now they can just swap back into their Claydol, go for 2 Mud Slaps, gets the farm down, and whilst Belly Bolt can now get the Sucker Punch farm down from this range, they will outpace me to the Charge Move on this Moltres, and of course, Ancient Power gets the KO there. We're not able to reach a last second Disarming Voice, and so they're able to Sucker Punch, farm me down, and I do lose that game. But GG's up in there into next battle. See a Dusknoir in the lead. So I say swap into Belly Bolt, and the opponent's actually on Hex there. They swap out after banking a lot of energy, coming in with a Ferret. So we go straight for Parabolic Charge. No defense buff this time around, which is unfortunate for me, but I can still tank a Swift pretty comfortably here, and I will just barely outpace them to a second Parabolic Charge before they reach Swift number 2. Now, Parabolic Charge, gonna be no shield. It gets the KO. This time we do boost up our defense, force the opponent to throw a Charge Move here. Otherwise, I will get them incredibly low with these Sucker Punches. So the opponent fires off the Shadow Punch there. I'm now going to come in with my Shadow Magnemite, and the opponent will reach another Charge Move straight away. So I'm definitely going to shield. The opponent full sends the Dynamic Punch there. I'm committing to the farm down, but they're already at another Charge Move. Just insanely spamming with that Hex buff this season. But their final Pokemon is going to be a Pidgeot, and double shielding my Magnemite comes in clutch for me. I can go for the Discharge there. The opponent is going to go straight for an Air Cutter, but this is double resisted, and it's not a very good move either. So now I can go for 1 Thunder Shock, fire off the Discharge number 2. This will grab the final shell from the opponent, and I'm able to go for 1 more Thunder Shock, reach Discharge number 3. Discharge gets the KO there, and I can Thunder Shock, farm down the Dusknoir, so the opponent just concedes the match. So, GG's to there into next battle. See a Togetic in the lead. Now, when I see Togetic in the lead, I'm expecting the Yonkers Legend team here, as usually his teams that he's successful with do very well in these limited metas. But let's just see if that is the case. Of course, if it is, a Skeledirge in the back might be problematic for the Magnemite, so I need alignment here. So I'm going to throw, but they actually swap into a Dunsparce. So, very clearly not the Legend team. I'm going to swap into my Shadow Magnemite. Of course, Drew, I'm going to hit for double super effective damage. So I'm definitely just going to shield here, as the opponent is is going to go and fire off that drill run. I'm now going to overfarm. I'm going to go for a discharge here, throwing just as they are reaching that next charge move. Discharge just barely does not get the KO. I could have thrown what the heck? I could have thrown a charge move on the CMP tie there, but instead I opt not to, and they come in with a Zangoose. So Zangoose could be quite scary for us in the end game here, as especially I've got no shields remaining. So instead, I'm going to bank some of the energy on my Magnemite, swap into Belly Bolt. They just go for a Night Slash there, and then bank some energy. So kind of strange. I don't know why they didn't go straight for the close combat, but either way, they fire off the Dazzling Gleam. Now, I could throw here, but that will just allow Zangoose to farm me down, and I do not want that, especially with all shields down. So instead, I allow them to farm me down, and I force them to throw up against my Flourishes. The opponent full sends a Dazzling Gleam, which is absolutely huge for me, because now we come in with the Magnemite, we get the full farm down, I fire off the discharge here, discharge, going to grab the final shield from the opponent, and now I have energy for the Magnet Bomb. Magnet Bomb, of course, easily gets the one shot there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on there into the next battle. We see Greninja in the lead once again. So, again, great for the entire team. I'm going to stay in here, and the opponent is eventually going to swap into a Grumpig. Now, I'm going to fire off a Disarming Voice here. Of course, I could be on Moonblast, so Moonblast actually does have the threat of shielding there, or sorry, it does have the threat of forcing a shield there. So now we're going to come in with the Belly Bolt. I can tank a Dynamic Punch there. I didn't want to throw a Discharge just because from that range it would not get the KO. So instead, going to use my shield here. I'm now going to overfarm. I'm going to farm up to very close to back-to-back discharges, and Discharge is going to be shielded by the Grumpig, but I'm able to reach another Discharge before the opponent throws their next move. So Discharge is going to get the KO from that range. They come in with a Skeledirge, and this is a little bit tricky for me. Of course, Greninja already has a Hydro Cannon loaded, so I'm going to come in with my Shadow Magnemite here. What I'm expecting is the opponent to fire off a Torch Song and then instantly try and snipe with their Greninja. So I'm going to shield this up. I swap, but the opponent does not swap out there, and I've made a huge mistake now, as unfortunately the opponents can just no shield that. They can bank the charge move as well, then swap into Greninja. Really nice play, and unfortunately there's just nothing I can do now. We can come back in with the Shadow Magnemite. I can overfarm as much as possible, but they banked a second move on the Skeledirge, and so the opponent can come back in with the Skeledirge, fire off that Torch Song. Torch Song easily gets the KO up against Shadow Magnemite, and unfortunately I do lose that game. But GG's to up in there, very well played. Into the next battle, we see a Shadow Gligar in the lead. So, not a Pokemon I've seen very much in the last few seasons, but we are going to stay in this matchup. Fire off the Trailblaze here. Once again, if there's any situations where Florigis is not going to get the KO with a single charge move, I will just go for Trailblaze first because it's going to boost up my attack, and now we can go for a Disarming Voice. Disarming Voice is going to be shielded by the opponent, so now I'm going to swap into my Belly Bolt. Of course, they could have access to Dig. We've seen Night Slash, so I'm going to shield this anyways, and it is the Dig there. So definitely glad I shielded, and the opponent not even able to reach a second Dig, but they come in with a Carbink. So what we're going to do here, go straight for Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge is going to boost up my defense there. Unfortunately, Sucker Punch is resisted, so not really doing much damage whatsoever with the fast move, but it is going to add up over time, and we get a second defense boost here. So at this point, I should be able to tank this pretty comfortably. Now, should I swap out of this matchup here and bank the energy? I'm not going to. Instead, I'm going to fire off another Parabolic Charge. And Parabolic Charge is again going to boost up my defense, but it doesn't really help me as it just gives them a huge farm down. And whilst, yes, I'm going to resist everything they throw, Shadow Magnemite, insanely glassy here. Power Gem nearly does half our HP. They come in with a Karate Chop Primeape, and now it's going to be game over, as unfortunately I give them too much energy. I have to let the first move go through. They're able to farm me down, and what even was that end game there? That was so poor on my end, but GG's to that opponent there. Into the next battle, we're going to see Florigis up against Greninja once again. So again, going to stay in this matchup. Maybe I should swap out, but of course, Belly Bolt having access to Sucker Punch, which is resisted as a fast move, actually isn't that ideal for me. But the opponent swaps into Shadow Typhlosion. I'm going to respond with my Belly Bolt here, and I'm definitely going to have to shield this. As the opponent going to go straight for the Blast Burn, I'm now going to go for a Parabolic Charge. Parabolic Charge is going to boost up my defense, hopefully. The opponent does shield, and we do boost up the defense. So now I can commit a shield, and then hopefully go for a full Sucker Punch farm down. They fire off the Thunder Punch there, and we are committing to the farm down. We do get that farm down, and they come in with a Dragonite, so things are now looking good for me. Parabolic Charge grabs the final shield. Now we're going to swap straight into Shadow Magnemite, go straight for the Discharge, and Discharge, not the best charge move, but it doesn't matter, it gets the one shot anyways, and now because of the better pacing, I'm able to reach another Discharge up against Greninja, and Discharge easily gets the KO there, and I'm able to take that game. So, GG's up on their next battle. See Florges into a Tinkaton. So I'm going to say swap into my Belly Bolt. And the opponent responds with a Mud Slap Crocodile. Honestly, the worst Pokemon Belly Bolt can see. They're going to resist everything, even Sucker Punch, the fast move. I do boost up my defense there, which doesn't really help me that much. I guess I'll reach a last second discharge, but still not really ideal for me. I get them actually into the red health range with just resisted damage, which is actually quite impressive for me. But we're going to come in with the Flourishes. If they're on Earthquake, then so be it. We're just going to let this go through. But they go for Crunch there. Crunch is going to drop my defense. So unfortunately, the next Crunch is going to do quite a lot of damage. But we will come in with the Shadow Magnemite, get the Snipe with a single Thunder Shock. But they come in with a Waterfall Gyarados, and look at the damage of the Thunder Shocks, but also look at the damage of those Waterfalls. Unfortunately, if they're on Dragon Breath, I think I might have been able to win this game, but they just get me so low to the point where I'm only reaching one charge move, so I might as well full send the Magnet Bomb here. Magnet Bomb, gonna be shielded, and that will be game over. Of course, we've still got 2 shields to play, couldn't really do anything there, so unfortunately, I do lose that game. But GG's to open there into the next battle, and possibly the final battle of this video, leading into a Jellicent. Gonna be safe swapping into my Belly Bolt, and I'm met with a Swampert, so not ideal for me. Gonna no shield. They actually go for Sludge there, which makes no sense at all. Just go for Hydro Cannon if you're running it. But either way, we go for Parabolic Charge, and we boost up our defense, so this will force the opponent to throw another charge move. They cannot farm me down. The opponent this time does go for Hydro Cannon, so don't really know why they went for Sludge the first time around, but it doesn't really matter. I'm gonna come in with Flourishes here, and I'm going to make a huge mistake thinking I would win CMP. I know this is actually IV dependent, especially since I've not got the best IVs on my Flourishes. I thought I would win CMP, and now unfortunately I'm wasting so much energy on the Trailblaze there. So what I'm going to do is actually just force the opponent to throw their Surf straight away. I'm going to no shield, put all my faith into Shadow Magnemite, and that might pay off for me because they've got a Bomber's Note in the bag. I'm going straight for Magnet Bomb. Magnet Bomb grabs the first shield from the opponent, and now because of course the opponent swapped out of that matchup in the lead, I will actually reach a second Magnet Bomb on the CMP tie once again with their Weather Ball. So the opponent is this time gonna no shield. It gets the one shot, and now can we outpace them to back-to-back discharges before they fully farm me down here? I think the answer is yes. We go for the first discharge. Discharge grabs a final shield, and I'm able to reach a second discharge. And of course, with that Thunder Shock damage, discharge gets the KO there. And once again, Shadow Magnemite sweeping in the end game.
So that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy it, please make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well, don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications. That way you'll be notified whenever I upload a new video. And if you want to take your support even further, you can now become a channel member with perks including early access to new videos, shoutouts at the end of each video, custom loyalty badges, and custom emojis to use in the comments. I want to say a massive thank you to everyone that has already become a channel member. Your support is greatly appreciated, and with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.